Hello, everyone, and welcome back to the almost weekly English shooting live stream. We will host, as always, Callum, and thank you very much for joining. If you're new, if you're regular, thank you for being part of the discussion and joining here tonight. For anyone new, this is an opportunity to talk about all things shooting and sometimes outside of the realms of shooting. So please do get involved, pose questions, bring up topics. If you think there's something that we should be discussing, then raise it. And if you want to have your opinions heard, then use that chat box. There is no wrong or right answer. You may be ridiculed severely by myself or the chat, but we like to hear both sides of the story. So whether you agree or disagree, get involved. And for all you regulars, you know what the deal is. Just make sure you hit that like button, as it really does help. And make sure you're subscribed as well, because we are it's sort of snuck up on me. We are very, very close to 40,000 subscribers. So I should probably pull my finger out and think about what we should do. There's definitely got to be a giveaway or some sort of prize. I think it defaults to maybe a gun, but I know that sort of rules out internationally. But let me know if you've got any cool suggestions of what the 40,000 subscriber giveaway prize should be. Then let me know. I may, seeing as it was so good last time, may just another 1522, maybe even an aero build from Otto. That'd be pretty cool. Kitted out in Magload, of course. But that's for later down the line. We've got a few other things that we're going to be discussing this evening. Very interesting announcement from BASC, and I'm aware of a few things as well going on behind the scenes after the coroner's report from the Keyham shootings and potential legislation changes that the Home Office wants to bring in. And BASC sort of making it clear that there is going to be a sort of clear stand with the national governing bodies and other interested parties from the side of the shooters, and they have announced their Keyham Test. So we're going to be talking a little bit about that. There was a little bit of trouble over with the NSRA. The NSRA got hacked. So a few details out there in the ether that I'm sure they don't want to be out there, and a few other, well, I'm guessing the people that the data belongs to probably doesn't want it out there either. Some good news. We've got the brand new option on the market of a new long-barreled pistol. I'm sure for anybody outside of the UK, you'll be going, what the hell is a long-barreled pistol? And yes, you'd probably be right in thinking it's similar to the gun that Penguin uses in the or Kingpin. Is it Penguin? He's basically a Penguin. Kingpin, you know what I mean. Yes, it's very similar to that, but we've got the new Keltec CP33 from Caliber Innovations that's hit the market, and the first one in the wild was seen at the Northern Shooting Show this weekend, and I did manage to get my hands on it for a cheeky little go, and we'll be talking a little about that. I've got some videos to show you a bit more. And on the topic of the Northern Shooting Show, it was the Northern Shooting Show this weekend, so we'll be talking a little bit about that, mainly focusing around the tri-stand that the UK PSA was running, which I had the enormous privilege to be a part of and help coordinate. So we'll be talking about that and a few interesting things that I've learned off the back of that. So the main topic for this evening, BASC. I always say, love them or hate them. They are regularly stepping it up a gear. I know I've been incredibly critical in the past, and I will remain incredibly critical of them when they continue to do silly things. But they do offer quite a bit of interesting defense and interesting news. So let's have a look at this new article and sort of pick through, I think, a little bit of gumph. I don't think what we're seeing here is truly everything that's going on, but let's take a look. So Martin Parker, with the Home Office shortly expected to deliver a statement on firearms licensing following the conclusion of the coroner's inquest on the Keyham shooting. BASC has devised the so-called Keyham Test to ensure any proposal put forward will make a real difference to public safety, says Martin Parker. The events were tragic. We know that. The coroner needs to establish what happened and can make recommendations. Yeah, we've covered that. And the real sort of meat of it, BASC has devised the so-called Keyham Test and believes that the essential and believes it is essential that the Home Office applies it to every recommendation announced by the minister. In essence, the Keyham Test is to assess each proposal, considering whether it could have stopped the Keyham shooting from occurring or could help prevent a further tragedy. By using it in this way, the Keyham test will allow for improvements to be made to firearms licensing while not disproportionately impeding legal activities. Now, I think there's a little bit of wishful thinking here. The first bit of wishful thinking is that the Home Office are actually going to use this. BASC don't. Sorry, I have to interrupt. Richard Wayne, 50,000 subs with wins a BASC cooking book. Maybe that's the giveaway. One of you guys get to come down and cook with me when we cook a BASC recipe. Anyway, so BASC don't have any real way of actually enforcing this on the Home Office or firearms licensing or the police. Does it mean that it's meaningless? In some respect, yes, because so what? So what that they have this recipe, this test that they're able to make, in their eyes, make sure that nothing silly is applied. The Home Office don't really have to apply logic because they rarely do when it comes to firearms law. And they certainly don't have to use a test created by BASC. But let's just say they do apply this test and BASC somehow manages to strong arm it with the other national governing bodies. Well, then this sort of, to me, doesn't make sense. In essence, the Keyham test is to assess each proposal, considering whether it could have stopped the Keyham shooting from occurring or could have helped prevent a further tragedy. Well, banning all guns, banning all lawful guns would have stopped the Keyham shooting because he was a lawful firearms owner. Just banning the lawful ownership of firearms would effectively, by how BASC is posing it, would pass their test and therefore they would be in agreement with. Or making a firearm certificate £10,000 would have certainly have prevented the likes of the person that committed the Keyham shooting from being able to economically get hold of a firearm certificate, or any matter of just completely illogical, out there, ridiculous ideas that would, in theory, prevent the shooting, that would, in theory, pass this test. So I think there's a lot more going on behind the scenes here, and BASC unfortunately haven't divulged what the test is. They say that they have, in advance of the policing minister's statement, the principles of the Keyham test have been sent to the Home Office, all police and crime commissioners in England and Wales, and civil servants. Great. But what about the people you're representing? Like, what about the firearms owners? What about the shooters? What about everybody else that is a part of this community? BASC have a habit of, okay, they are the largest shooting organization. They represent the most firearm certificate holders, the most shooters within the UK. But they sort of get this idea in their head that because they're the biggest and their members effectively just give them carte blanche to make whatever decisions and put anything in front of the Home Office or the police or firearms licensing that they wish. So why not share what these principles are? Because that, maybe there could be some input and, at the very least, just communicating with your members and letting us know, well, I say us, and not actually a best member, but letting them know what they are. So I think there is more going on behind the scenes because, again, this definition of the Keyham test doesn't make a whole lot of sense. What I think ultimately the Keyham test is going to be, or certainly a significant element of it, is it's going to be the does what does what you're proposing already exist in law? So, or are you trying to bring in a law that is in addition to something that was already in place that would have stopped it if it was applied correctly? And BASC do touch on this. So, in the case of and potential significant improvements should be directed at enhancing the application of the law rather than changes to it. The reform should therefore target this failing and ensure that firearms licensing departments apply the existing law. So I think this is ultimately what the Keyham test is. Do you already have everything that you need to have prevented Keyham? Well, the resounding answer is absolutely. There was many different mechanisms that already exist within law that would have prevented that shooting. So trying to bring in even more laws to try and correct something that they didn't follow correctly within the existing law is just meaningless. It's actually, you can have as many laws as you want, as many caveats, as many catch-alls, but if you don't apply them correctly, if you don't actually follow the law in the first place, the whole system falls down. And that's exactly what we saw down in Devon and Cornwall and with the Keyham shooting. So I think this is really the crux of it. I don't know why they're trying to be so vague with this sort of explanation, or why they're not actually releasing the key principles. Why are they sharing it with the likes of the Home Office, police and crime commissioners and civil servants, and not the shooting community? I think we should really have a good say in that, and be kept up to speed. And of course, BASC, in fairness, have been very good at holding firearms licensing to account. They know, we all know what the real issues are, and ultimately this is something that I believe we've covered this exact article previously, but we know from the coroner's report the main continuous theme throughout it is that there was a massive failing, that firearms licensing is inefficient. In some cases, it's not fit for purpose. And there has been this call for sort of rigorous, continuous training and assessment of firearms licensing personnel since Dunblane. So it's still very clear this is the angle that BASC are taking. This is what, in essence, the Keyham test is. They just seem to be going about it in a very funny way. They do even in the final sign off, again, they do nod to where they want to see things going. BASC has already fed a series of suggested improvements into the Home Office, including the introduction of a national regulator to monitor and manage both firearms licensing and the training of police staff and officers to improve standards, and will continue to do so through whatever process follows as a result of the statement by the ministers. So that is ultimately where their main focus is, and I think the focus is in exactly the right place. They're just, I guess, trying to be very political and fluffy about it. Of, yeah, we'll listen to these so-called legislation changes and proposals that you've got, but you don't need any more laws. And I'm aware that potential proposals have already been shared, have already been put forward from the Home Office to national governing bodies and other key stakeholders. And certainly from the shooter's side, certainly from the firearms owner's side, it's been completely shot down. There should be no thought given to new legislation. There should be no thought given to new laws to try and prevent something like Keyham. We already have everything in place to have prevented something like that. We already had all the laws to prevent something like Dunblane or Hungerford or not I always say Carlisle or Cumbria. Um, the law was already pretty well in favour and gave all the tools necessary to prevent those. It's just a case of the book not being followed, or different forces interpreting things differently and having different standards. And that's ultimately the problem here. Is we need clearer guidance to firearms licensing, and there needs to be accountability. There needs to be some sort of enforcement to make sure that they are doing their job. We knew from the first like news of Keyham, and from the first sort of political jostling, they there was going to be some changes, or certainly there was going to be some push for changes. And of course, everybody's first question is always, where is this going to go? Where are we heading? What changes are they going to try and bring in? And we all know this takes an incredibly long time. They're still, cogitating over the coroner's report. The proposals will be proposed. There will be a lot of discussions. There'll probably be a lot more consultations and various surveys of people, of interested parties, and we could be talking years down the line. So it's a very slow train that we are on. But I think ultimately our national governing bodies are certainly in the right frame of mind, and I think the Home Office has had the clear message sent that they need to get their own house in order where it comes to firearms licensing first, before they start looking at bringing in additional laws. In the scheme of things, once again, when you look at the statistics, these shootings are incredibly rare. They are almost so rare that it's, well, let's say almost, they are rare enough to be very low down on the list of priorities or things that you worry about on a day-to-day basis. And they do always seemingly get a disproportionate amount of time and effort and energy spent on them, which in terms of, the public safety, the preservation of life, would be far better off spent elsewhere. But it's firearms, it's shooting, it's guns, it's always a hot topic, and there's always a disproportionately loud voice from a pretty small minority, because it's an emotive subject and they can garner the interest of the press. So where it's going to go, I don't know, but as I've said from the beginning, it's something that I'm going to be watching intently, uh, and very, very closely. Any updates that we get, I will make sure to give to all of you. And just as a sort of a bit of context, and an update that isn't really an update, to show you how slow things are moving, we have the Firearms Bill currently going through, and ultimately this is about changing the law around ammunition components and the miniature rifle ranges. And this has been talked about for at least a couple of years now. So then and it still hasn't fully been passed. They're still discussing it in the various houses, and there's still being changes made. So this is how slow things moved, and they do want to go particularly hard with changes from Keyham. They do want to use it as an excuse to get things, quite significant changes, brought in. Well, the more significant the changes, the longer the discussions, the longer the process is going to take. But yeah, let me know what you guys think in the comments. Where do you think this is going? Do you agree with it? Do we need new firearms law? I really don't think we do. Again, we have on average about 20 deaths per year attributed to firearms, and statistically, one or two of those is down to a legally held firearm. I think I found the statistics that more children drown in swimming pools each year than people are killed by guns. Are we looking to ban swimming pools? Are we going to restrict the depth of swimming pools so no one can drown in them? There's just bigger issues to be worried about, and certainly when there is actually a plain to see issue with something revolving around firearms, you want to focus on that, i.e., firearms licensing, rather than going around all the houses and new laws that will do absolutely nothing. Aaron T, what laws do you think will change? Do you think we will get? Do you Do you think we will see any gun bans? What laws will change? If there's anything that's going to be changed, I don't know. It depends exactly what you mean by law. Changes that 100% are going to come. I say 100%. I've got some crystal ball here, but it is inevitable at this point. We're going to see the fees go up. 100%. We're going to see an increased fee. I think it is going to be around the £200 a year mark. Is that a change in law? Technically, but no, that's going to be a change. I think we could potentially see more robust applications for shotguns at the very, very least. Of course, with a shotgun certificate, you only need one referee. You don't need to provide good reason and things like that. They have made it very clear they want to bring shotgun certificates in line with firearm certificates. The one big saving grace with that is you look at the game shooters and the clay pigeon shooters and the landowners. They don't want it any harder to go out there game shooting. And the landowners, the gentry, the game shooters, that is where all the wealth and power is when it comes to shooting. Like look at BASC. BASC, the largest shooting organization of them all, and they make it very, very clear their main focus is game shooting and moreover game meat and the game industry. To me, that just says it all. So I think the Home Office are playing a very dangerous game, seeing as a lot of the lords and a lot of the MPs would be directly affected by this. They're going to put up a significant fight, and they're going to be very motivated to put up a fight. So trying to get anything changed around shotguns and shotgun certificates is going to be very, very difficult. But I don't think we'll be able to fend everything off. So I think we may see things like having to provide good reason. Is that going to involve being a member of a Home Office approved club? Well, no, because that's a very significant change, and I don't think you can get Home Office approved shotgun clubs. But I think it should be. Unfortunately, it's going to come down to interpretation, but it will be down to the FEO to assess whether you have provided good reason. So gone will be the days of just being able to say I want a shotgun just because I want one, which legally you can do right now. You may have to show, yes, I want to go clay pigeon shooting, yes, I want to go and do this, or I want to do that, or I've been doing this, or I've been doing that. Here's my BASC membership, here's my CPSA membership, here's receipts from a local playground that I've actually been taking part in this stuff. So yeah, I think that's potentially what we're going to see. In terms of gun bans, I don't think necessarily bans. There's been this big whole thing with pump action shotguns, which is just illogical. Why they're going after the pump actions and not the semis, or including the semi-automatics. It's just nonsensical, and I think that will get shot down. Could we see the loss of semi-autos and or pump actions from Section 2, and they're only available on Section 1? I think that potentially is somewhere there's something that we could see. So I don't know. I don't think anything's going to be completely banned because of this, especially how obvious it was that it was a firearms licensing cock up, and it never is down to the gun. But in any of the cases that we've had in the UK or of high profile shooting, this one highlights it the most, that it was definitely not anything to do with the gun and more systematic failings. So Tim Wolf, thank you very much for the support. Appreciate that. Love your videos. Mad subscriber for life. Just a quick reminder, guys, we're on the road to 40,000 subscribers. So if you're not already, hit that subscribe button and make sure you hit that like button as well. We've got like nearly 3 times the amount of people watching. It's free. It takes a second. Hit that like button. Brian Solomon, I think two semi-auto pump and semi-auto at risk. Yes, but even prior to this, people have been, oh, they're going to come after the two semi-autos, or they're going to come after the box feds and the high capacity shotguns. Those calls have sort of died down now. I can't see any immediate threat to them. The 2.2 is very safe in regards to the fact that we have a specific exemption in law for people to be able to use 2.2 rifles. So yeah, and I don't think we're going to go down the Californian route where we're going to start banning particular features, or ban assault rifles or stuff like that. And the 2.2 semi, it's not just the scary black guns. It will affect a lot of pest controllers and farmers, and again landowners that use them for getting the bunnies, for pest control, and all other all other sorts. So I think at the moment they are fairly safe, and certainly a weird silver lining, if there could be any silver linings from what happened in Keyham, is it has taken uh, the heat off of 2.2 semi-autos. Yeah, for the moment, it's very much the tactical shotguns that they are looking at. So what are you guys saying? Let's have a quick look through your comments. Keep them coming. Keep the if there's anything you want to discuss or any viewpoints you've got, you use that comment section. We will be talking about the NSAA hack in a second. People talking, what's that, David? Yeah, I thought if you went to prison, it's 5 years after release, over 3 years ban for life. So talking about section 21, don't think I've actually done a video about that. I sort of need to redo the firearms law video because they're old and make me cringe, and some of them are a little outdated now, and I don't think I've actually ever covered section 21. For those that aren't aware, we have a little caveat in UK law, which I think it's, if you've had a custodial sentence of over 3 months, or you've had a suspended sentence for like over 12, then you are prohibited from holding firearms up to a period of, I think you're right, 5 years. And if you have a custodial sentence over 3 years, then you have a complete ban for life. That's why the first time you even have to, I regularly have to sign section 21s, and firearm certificate holders have to, RFDs have to. We were doing that at the weekend at the Northern Shooting Show to make sure that everybody has isn't prohibited from being in possession of a firearm. You need to declare under section 21 that you're not. So maybe that's a good video idea to put out there. David sort of is being charged alone enough for them to not give you a shotgun license, or does it have to be convicted? This was covered. They've changed this recently, and it's not good news. So they updated the guidance to chief police officers around suitability to be able to own firearms. And unfortunately, it's incredibly subjective. And there is, when I say subjective, well, it is subjective on the police's side. They can use even the suspicion of a crime. And this was the one specific paragraph in this guidance, which is just absolutely bonkers and just shows how stacked against us things are, which it said pretty much, I don't know if this is verbatim, but it was pretty much along the lines of, if you have been suspected of a crime and still found not guilty, the police can still, or firearms licensing can still use that suspicion of a crime to refuse a application, which is absolute insanity, right? You've gone to court, you've faced a jury of your peers, all of the evidence has been put forward, they've found you not guilty, and then they're still going to use the fact that you ended up in court and that you had you were charged with something incorrectly because you've been found not guilty as a reason of why you're not suitable. The whole thing of innocent until proven guilty does not apply to UK firearms owners. It is my solicitor has explained it multiple times. It is a higher burden within law. Actually, it's a higher burden that sort of exceeds the burden of proof, and burden with criminal convictions for firearm certificate holders, or potential firearm certificate holders. It's absolutely balmy. I mean, if the Home Office really wants to change things, they should change stuff like that. It's in my mind, it's just absolutely disgusting. I've heard so many stories about wrong place, wrong time, deliberate false allegations being made against certificate holders, and the police go, "Well, yeah, but better safe than sorry." Even when they've prosecuted people for wasting police time in making false allegations, they still keep the certificates away from the person that had the false allegation made. It's like, what world are they living in? So anyway, Tim Wolf, how are you from Texas? I'm jealous. Which part of Texas? Much love and love the videos, man. Keep up the good work. Thank you very much. Really appreciate you guys watching. Let's. Are you guys? What are you guys talking about? Let's move on to some pretty. Doesn't seem to be good data protection within the firearms world, with the NSRA unfortunately being hacked recently. So this actually happened a couple of weeks ago now, but of course we didn't have the show last week because I was busy helping to pack up the UK PSA stand in the back of my now very strained car. But the National Small Bore Rifle Association, and anybody that has been to Bisley will know the Lord Roberts Centre well. This is sort of like a bit of a, I don't know, public service announcement to all of you guys, and to remind you to always, I'm sure you do, but to always take firearms security incredibly serious. Firearms owners and firearms themselves are an incredibly attractive target. Not to the extent that, like a Glock 17 from the police or an SA-80 from the military. And most criminals will know the security measures around lawfully held firearms, and it usually isn't worth their bother. But if there's an easy if there's an easy way in, if they suspect that they're going to have an easy time of it, when opportunity knocks and all of this. So, if you have ever been a part of the National Small Bore Rifle Association, you need to maybe sit up and pay attention. So they have announced the National Small Bore Rifle Association, the NSRA, can confirm that it had been a victim of a cyber attack. We are unable to provide any further further information while a police investigation is ongoing. All our IT systems are fully operational, no funds have been lost, and we will communicate fully to our members on the conclusion of the police investigation. We can confirm that this attack has not affected the membership portal, which remains secure. So it says some legacy servers have been hacked, containing working documents, not a full database. At this time, we cannot say exactly who this affects, as we have no access to the servers. So it might be sort of got away with it a little bit, but not actually be any personal data, or there may be a lot of personal data. So they don't exactly know at the moment. It is nice to see, though. It's not a nice situation. It's not nice to see, but at least the NSRA have come out and said, there is something going on. We're really sorry. We can give you as much information as possible, and then move on. I know there have been previous data leaks by companies that have certainly moved on and bettered, and much better attitude to things now. Where it was like, let's keep quiet and sit on this until people sort of figure it out. But yeah, having a database or any sort of personal information of a firearms owner leaked is not good. Whilst I don't think necessarily people are going to start, they're going to start targeting homes, one of the things to be aware of as a firearms owner is people tailing you. because if they know where you live, all they have to do is wait until you start loading gun-shaped things into your car, and then you're not in your house, they're not in their safe, they're a much easier target. And there have been cases of that in the past. So it is important to always take your security seriously and always keep your wits about you. If you are transporting firearms, you have to think of yourself as a target, be a lot more, keep a lot more observation about you. And if things don't seem right, better to be safe than sorry. Uh, it's a crap situation. Whichever way whatever happens, the firearms owners always end up getting the brunt of it. It's no one's it's not any certificate holder's fault that this has happened, but you're going to have to make sure that you keep your wits about you to mitigate any increased risk. This is something that I sort of attacked quite seriously, because I know my data was among those in the previous leak, and it had GPS coordinates to your house, full name, date of birth, contact details, your home address, and it was like, okay, really need to think seriously about this. And I upped my security level. Just because a lot of people look at security with their firearms, not just here in the UK, but internationally, of, I'll do the minimum required legally. In some countries, i.e. America, the minimum standard of security required by law is not that significant, and you don't have to really do a lot. In the UK, the baseline is pretty good. You have to have an approved safe, but unless you start holding large numbers of guns, that's really about it. When you get over 10, they may insist that you have, a monitored alarm. But personally, CCTV systems now are not that expensive. You can get ones that are actually pretty easy and quick to install. You're talking a couple of £100 rather than potentially thousands. Again, alarm systems are not expensive, and there are multiple things that you can do to bolster your security. Having a locked door, if your safe is in a room that usually only you have access to anyway, or only you would be using, well, why not put a lock on that door as well? Not just looking at the safe, but looking at the security of the house. Are your windows tight? Can they be pried open? CCTV, alarms, maybe even bolstering up your front door locks and stuff like that. It's all things that I think we should go above and beyond, because regardless of the guns falling into the wrong hands, they're expensive. So you wouldn't leave high value jewelry and large amounts of cash around the house, and you usually go over the top, let's say, with the security measures. So do exactly the same with your guns. We've talked about it previously, about the way the police looks at it for RFDs, and this is the way that you should look at it, is that no security measure is unbreakable. Given enough time and enough force, any safe, any armored door, whatever, can be gotten into. What you want is the delay. You want the layers of security. You want it to take 5-10 minutes for them to be able to actually get in the house. You want them to spend 5-10 minutes looking for the right room or looking for the right location of the safe. And then if you've got a locked door to that room, you want it to take 5-10 minutes to be able to get through that. And then you want them to take at least 5-10 minutes to get in your safe. All of these different layers build up to quite a significant length of time. And this is why I think it's really imperative that you have the likes of CCTV, motion censored CCTV or alarms, so that you have the time. Somebody starts kicking in your door, whether they're after the guns or not, you've got to think the worst. And the way I would look at it is, where do I spend the majority of my time? For most people, it's your place of work. How quickly can you get back to your house if an alarm is triggered? Well, that's how long I think your security needs to hold up to with your guns. That's just my way of thinking it. Obviously, you know, we have our levels of security and our you know, the guidance from the Home Office and firearms licensing. The guidance isn't always that good, but that's I think the really best way to look at it. Flyer. My security is a staffy that turns into the Incredible Hulk if you come through our gates. Dogs are an incredible security tool on so many different levels. Firstly, the noise. I've seen documents and videos. No criminal wants to go into a house with a dog, right? That's just like, I do not fancy being bitten today. Just the noise of a dog can be good for security. You know, there'll be a lot of people that go, really can't be, you know, if I've got two houses either side of them, and one's, you can hear barking and loud barking, you know, big dog barking, versus a quiet house, it's going to be the quiet house that they go into. Quick, just quick side note on that, sort of family friend years ago had this old crusty dog, who was a staffy, and that he always had this story of fingers in the sink, where they went out for a night, came back and found three fingers in their kitchen sink. This guy had obviously fancied trying to go through their kitchen window, had tried to, you know, I guess, grab over the counter. The dog thought otherwise, and ended up having a bit of a wrestle over the sink with the fingers. I think the dog won on that one. So prime example of dogs can be not only good audible security measures, they can be pretty good physical security measures as well. Dylan, when I travel with my my shotgun, it's always broken in the case, trigger lock attached, and always leave enough room in front in case anything were to happen while traveling. So yeah, absolutely, you can go real belt and braces. Again, traveling with a trigger guard lock, traveling with any sort of lock through the gun is not a lawful requirement here in the UK. You just have to take all reasonable precautions, whatever that means. But yeah, you can. That is something that I used to do when I was transporting guns through London, when I was studying there and shooting there as part of the university. I would go like absolute ham. I would actually, it was usually the 1522 that I'd be transporting. That's what I just love to shoot all the time. I would go as far as like splitting the gun, the upper from the lower. I know it's a pretty simple thing to reassemble, but it does a couple of things. First of all, if I'm ever stopped with the gun, it's not in a fireable state. And you know, it's like, I'm not planning to do anything here. It's in transportation mode. And also, there's a chance that if a criminal gets hold of that gun, it just makes it more difficult. Criminals are usually pretty stupid, certainly the ones that get caught. So just another barrier for them to being able to use it. And I would also, through the sort of through the the ejector port, put through was that no through the magwell, I'd put through a one of those. I think it came with the gun, one of those locks. So it's two things. It can't be used easily by me or anybody else, and it's another level of security. Another thing with security that a lot of people tend to do, it sometimes is inevitable. It's not advised, but let's say you're doing a trip down from Scotland down to the south coast with a gun, as I do, you know, say regularly. I've done a lot of times. We're traveling anywhere the breadth of a country. You can be traveling for 4, 5, 6, 7 hours. It is reasonable that you're going to need to stop, and you may be on your own. You may have to leave the car unattended. Well, something that people do quite a lot is, you know, I don't necessarily think taking, you know, an upper or a lower or a receiver or the barrels in, depending on what the gun is, because that still can be pretty bulky depending on what the gun is. But removing the bolt, You know, just removing the bolt from a rifle, be that semi-auto or bolt action, and carrying the bolt with you. Again, that means that the gun is pretty much useless. And even things like shotguns, you know, over and under, side by side. I know there's a lot of people that will even stick the forend in their pocket. It's another barrier, and it's also something that you can, if the worst happens, you can say, look, I was trying to take all reasonable precaution. Can you legally have a dog for the purpose of security these days? On the face of it, I'm just, it sort of sounds like a silly question. Um, like, as you still have security dogs, you still, yeah, as far as I'm aware, um, dogs are, you can still have a dog specifically for security purposes. Of course, there is the Dangerous Breeds Act, so you're not allowed certain types of dogs. Uh, but no, you can still have them for security. Does that then make, if you have a dog specifically for security, which in essence, I'm going to get into dodgy ground now, is in essence self-defense, does that make a self-defense dog an offensive weapon? You're not allowed any other article or any other object for the purpose of security. Well, you know, okay, alarms and safes and all of that. Any object that could be used to fend off um, a an attacker or a robber, as it becomes an offensive weapon. But you can have a dog. We're going to have you know, the the Offensive Weapon Dogs Act soon, no doubt. But no, as far as I'm aware, there may be more educated people on this subject. You can still have a dog for security. Interesting that it doesn't necessarily make the dog an offensive weapon. Anyway, let's move on to some guns. This is a shooting channel, and during the Northern Shooting Show, Caliber Innovations had their brand new Kel-Tec CP33. Unfortunately, I've got the video of me shooting it. I will bring that up in a second. Unfortunately, I like Restream, the software that I use for the stream now, mutes my mic when I play a video, and I still haven't learned how to not get it to mute. So I will play the video in a second, but just word to the wise, I will be muted. Maybe that will be a relief for some of you. But let's have a quick look. At Caliber Innovations. So Caliber Innovations is the UK distributor for Kel-Tec, and it's not just the CP33 that they are bringing in, but this is, I think, the one that's got the biggest buzz. Mainly, you know, slim pickings for LBPs here in the UK, and you know, everyone gets excited when there's a new option, and it's Kel-Tec, a brand that, yeah, everybody knows. Caliber Innovations did bring in some UK legal Kel-Tecs a few years ago, but it was a very, very small batch. These are going to be a lot more available. So yes, a name like Kel-Tec fully available in the UK, and a range of Kel-Tec guns. Maglo does already have one of these on order for development. We're going to do a lot of hopefully Gucci stuff with it, and after shooting it, I cannot wait to get it in. It does look like a little bit of an oddball, and there are certain things about it which are very strange, but it is very nice to have a different option here in the UK. And in terms of price, now, yes, I know Americans out there are probably going, oh my god, this costs X amount of dollars. In the US, what the hell? That's like $1,500 or $1,300 or whatever the crap exchange rate we now have. Yes, welcome to the UK, where a Smith & Wesson 1522 will cost you £650. This is just the state of play. The way that Kel-Tec have done this, I don't know exactly how they've done it with the barrel, but the magwell and the rod is very interesting. You can see, let's try it. You can see it's offset to left-hand side. You know, screw the left-handers, right? But for a right-handed shooter, it brings the rod more sort of central to you, and further away from your arm. So it's very nice to shoot, and the whole sort of magwell that they've created for it to be able to do this is quite nice. Not the glue and bondo that they've used in the PPQ. This is I would say a proper solution. And the big thing about this gun is that it's got a 33 round magazine, which looks absolutely hilarious. From the side, looks pretty normal. So this was on the Caliber Innovations stand at the Northern Shooting Show, and yeah, you would say, okay, yeah, looks like pretty much any 22 magazine that you would see, until you see the back of it. It is quite extraordinary. So yes, those are two stacks that end up merging into one. And like honestly, I just looked at that and went, that has to be like jam central. Like how does that even just not jam? But I think they, during the show, they put, and I think it was somewhere between like 400-500 rounds through the gun, across the weekend, and I did not see a single issue. So they actually used the UK PSA stand, because it was the only 22 range that they could go on to. But they, yeah, they were coming on there, bringing customers, allowing them well, not this. It was another. No, they were giving demos. They weren't letting. It was only RFDs shooting it, of course, because you can't lend LBPs. But it's like, Bob from Range 21, that he was range 21, range 22, range 23. It's late. Anyway, Bob went and went and shot it, and he had a good go on it. I had a good go on it. Paul did. Matt was doing various demos for it. I think Simon had a go with it. So they put a good few hundred rounds through it, and I didn't see it jam once. So it looks like it's a reliable, and oh my god, does this thing eject. So I'm going to bring up the video again. I will be muted for some reason while it comes on, but let me bring that video. Don't want to sit again. Don't want to mute again. You can actually see that. Let me make me bigger again. There we go. Jumbo size, in more ways than one. Oh, lockdown was hard. You can see like halfway through there, I sort of stop and go, how does this thing still have ammunition? Now, 30 odd rounds in a rifle, pretty standard if you have mag load accessories, but 33 rounds in a pistol is just insane. And shooting it, you're like, when is this thing going to run out? And being there while other people were shooting it, you have to be very, very careful stood to the wrong side of that gun, because it ejects those cases and throws them out. So yeah, from what I can see, an incredibly reliable gun from that one. Like really good ejection on it and really high capacity. And there are a lot of people thinking, well, is this going to be a next competition gun? Is it going to sort of take the LBP competition circuit by storm? And I think there are going to be a lot of cases where having a 33 round magazine is going to give you a significant advantage. And the gun, it does look quite bulky. It looks very blocky and Lego-y and not very streamlined, but incredibly comfortable to shoot. There's no recoil, but it's easy to shoot. It's actually felt quite ergonomic in the grip. And on the plate rack, I picked the gun up, and I did miss the last target, but straight on the plate rack, like 4 out of 6. just first time picking up the gun, and very, very pointable. Wherever you're pointing it, the round went. Very easy to shoot. So in terms of the performance of the gun in competition, I think it's there, and there are going to be some stages where not having to change a magazine is going to be a significant advantage. The only downside is that if you have a long stage where technically with 33 rounds, there's not many stages that you're going to come up against where you're going to have to change the magazine. But with misses and top ups and doing 4 shots on a target when 2 will do because ammo is cheap, you're going to end up changing the magazine anyway, and that is going to be from a competitive stance or a competition stance. That's where the CP33 is going to be let down, because the mag release is at the bottom of the magazine. So you've got nothing on the side, whereas if you watch a lot of competitive shooters, they can drop that magazine and they're already grabbing, they've pressed that button and they're already going for that magazine, and it's fractions of a second. With this, the load on it is going to be, even if you get it down so slick, it's going to take you significantly longer. And I think there's also a very high risk, because you're having to get the magazine out of the bottom. It's much higher risk that you end up breaking some sort of muzzle angle. So on that, I'm not entirely sure, but I know there are going to be certain competitions, certain stages where somebody turns up with one of these and nobody is going to be able to compete with them, just because they don't have to smash that mag change in there. But as a pure fun gun, as something different, as something that's actually pretty bloody cool, like 100%. I don't think caliber at the £1,100 mark, the GSG Firefly, I think, is about £450. It's like the cheapest gun out there, and I think the GSG 1911 is around the same mark. But they are pretty cheap guns. When you look at the likes of the KMR, the K22, the PPQ, 1,100 quid is in the right ballpark there. And I know there's going to be people that go out there and buy this purely because it's a Kel-Tec, like, and no other reason. And it's not just the CP33 that they're bringing in. Let's go and have a little look at their Kel-Tec page. I am going to show another product in a second. They're also going to have, so I think it was the KMR 30 that they brought in previously in a very small batch. I think there was only sort of 8 or 10 that were brought in. They are going to be bringing this in and having plentiful supply, and it will still have the collapsing stock. They've put a very clever mechanism in there. They did have one of these as well during the show, but didn't get to shoot it. It was 22 Magnum. Didn't want to be putting too much of that on down the range. And yeah, they've put a very nice little block in there, so it's still got the same mechanism. It won't completely fold down, but you can even, what they were saying is you could even take the stock off, and this little gidget that's there still makes the total length UK compliant. So very, very well done. And this is what happens when you go to a company like Kel-Tec and go, look, Kel-Tec are known for doing weird and wonderful things and being very innovative and crafty with what they do. So laying it out on the table of all you have to do is a couple of additions to the gun and you can sell it to a whole new market. Well, Kel-Tec's like, yeah, screw it, we'll do it. And going to the manufacturer and getting them to do it, it's an OEM solution, and I think that's going to pay dividends. I can't remember the name of it. I'm not a super Kel-Tec fanboy, but they are going to be bringing in their bullpup. And yes, Arian, Daniel, whoever, yes, that is a bullpup. So they are going to be bringing in that at some point. Another product that I would just like to give a quick mention to, because I'm gonna have to get one. Any practical shooter, any RO certainly is going to have to get this. Brilliant. Now let's make it bigger. So this is available as well from Caliber Innovations. Love it. There is, there are a lot of very, very good ROs out there, and without ROs, practical shooting wouldn't run, the sport wouldn't exist. But there is a small minority that do only get into the sport, or sorry, only become an RO for, I think one term that I hear is badge collecting. He's like, oh, that's another one I can add to my lapel. And also oh, I get to lord it over people. I am an RO. You will respect my authority, and all of that. It's just so true. You do get those Victor Meldrews on the range sometimes. So I will have to be picking one of those up, even though I'm not actually an RO. I don't need the added stress or added workload. I did at one point sign up to start heading down the RO route because Connor's was adamant it makes you a better shooter because you understand the law. You understand the rules. You have to understand the rules a lot better, which helps you as a competitor. And then we spent that car journey with me raising very interesting questions that he didn't know the answer to. And that is like, maybe you don't need to become an RO to know all the law, all the rules. And I really don't need any more on my plate. So yeah, I can't RO, shoot, film, and in between do maglo bits and all that. It's just there's enough going on at a shooting weekend. But absolutely love the shirt Caliber. I think it's absolutely awesome. What you guys saying to see? Aaron T. Have you ever used a WMR AR-15, and what were your thoughts about them? Yes, I have. It's not a so I did get a review. There was this whole spate of 22 WMR AR-15s coming onto the market within the UK. I think Guncraft was the first. Well, maybe Titans. I know there's a lot of argument about who actually was the first. As far as I was aware, I think Guncraft was the first. It was certainly the first one that I saw in the flesh. Northwest Custom Parts brought one out. Lantac famously said that they weren't going to make one. Oh, I don't need to bring that up again. So, like experienced subscribers or long-term subscribers will know the Lantac 22 WMR story all too well. And I'm swear there were others as well available on the market. But anyway, there are a few available. I ended up getting one of them in to review, and it was one of the very first ones, and it didn't work. It was incredibly unreliable. It jammed left, right, and center, and I was like, ugh, like I like variety, and it's great. It's an AR in a different caliber, and you got longer range, and it's more recoil. It's still not recoil of a 223, but I really got the appeal of it. Something different, greater capability within the AR platform and UK legal. What's not to like? But there was this whole sort of suggestion that suddenly there's going to be whole competitions with 22 WMR, or mini rifle is suddenly going to allow a WMR class, and we're going to be shooting out to 300-400 yards with them and all of this. And that was never going to be the case. It just wasn't going to happen. But something fun, fair dues. But I think there was a lot of overexcitement with them about the potential, because there aren't any. They are effectively a plinker gun. There's no real set competitions for them here in the UK. And then all I heard was reliability issues. Now, this particular one, I'm not going to name and shame, because both Connors and I gave a lot of feedback to them, and they went away and they changed a lot of things. And fair dues to them, they got them working, and they are now very, very reliable. So yeah, my thoughts, yeah, they're cool. Am I going to go and get one? No. Like the Keltec, I would probably be interested in getting, because it's a Keltec. It's a cool gun. The same reason that I like the Strybog. It's something interesting and different and quirky. and it happens to be in 22WMR. But in an AR, I don't know what I would do with it. If I want to go and shoot an AR platform in the UK, it's the battle arms. I can't think of a more enjoyable gun to go out there and shoot. Whether it's 22WMR or 22LR. So I just, it doesn't tick the box for me. And the whole thing with the Keltec, it's not because it's a 22WMR. It's because it's a Keltec and it's a really funky looking gun. But yeah, now super reliable, great to have as an option. From what I've heard, great fun. Why not? Just it's not my cup of tea. Keltec innovative, more like mad as a box of frogs. You have to be crazy to be innovative. Like I work with somebody that crisscrosses the line of genius, innovation, and batshit crazy. No, Connors is a pretty level-headed, sensible guy, but some of his ideas he comes out with, you're like, what have you been smoking? And why aren't you sharing? It's to be innovative, you've got to be a bit crazy. You've got to think out of the box and all of that. And yeah, it's a fine line between genius and madness. Oh, that's it. Yes. Andy, don't forget the T2 WMR, so the T2 from the tunnel down in Dorset. Still haven't actually been able to pull the trigger on one. I keep on threatening that I'll go down to the tunnel and just see if one's available to go and shoot. I would be really interested in getting a hands-on with one of those, 100%. But yeah, there's loads of them available. D Doherty, sorry it was late to the party. How dare you? What could possibly be better on a Thursday night than coming and joining all of us? BASC, aside their Keyham Test, should be pushing for the repeal of any other gun legislation that has clearly not worked. Absolutely. This is the thing is, whilst I don't think it's going to happen, if the Home Office want to open up discussions about changes in firearms law, well, there shouldn't be any justification of making things more restrictive and worse for firearms owners and shooters here in the UK. But if they want to have the conversation about changing legislation, maybe we can push it the other way. Oh, well, you've opened up the discussions. Let's have a discussion. This, and this needs to bloody change, and it needs to change right now. Kyle, I've missed this. The Keyham test. Just as a quick recap, so I think you can go back to the beginning of the stream and check out what we were saying, but I will just go back to it now. Basically, the Home Office is going to, there's going to be proposals released very shortly from the Home Office and ministers. Why can't they make that bigger? Is it because your comment's showing? Yeah. What a funny little bit of software. Anyway, so this is what we're talking about. BASC has released the Keyham test, and ultimately BASC has devised so-called Keyham test, and it believes it is essential that the Home Office applies it to every recommendation announced by the minister. In essence, the Keyham test is to assist each proposal considering whether it could have stopped the Keyham shooting from occurring or could help prevent a further tragedy. Well, as we covered, first of all, they haven't really shared what the Keyham test is, and what I think it isn't actually what they're saying. It's more of a test to ensure that any new legislation that they want to bring in isn't just to cover up the failing to use previous legislation correctly. I think that's ultimately what the Keyham test is coming down to, because the Home Office have made it perfectly clear that they want to bring in changes as a result of Keyham, when they should most definitely be making any changes with firearms license. Does it feel close to a centerfire? If you're talking about 22WMR, no. 22WMR just feels like a punchy 22LR. it's, you know, it's louder. You know, it is a higher velocity. It's a bigger bang. There is more recoil, but a 22 WMR is much closer to a 22 LR in recoil than it is to 223. It's and that's why it's like, you know, another 600 quid. You will have my next. Another 600 quid. You will have my next rifle, the Lantac Raven 9mm. I know how you love Lantac. Absolutely love Lantac. I will be blown away if the 9mm Raven works, because I haven't actually seen one work. A lot of people that have tried and tried and tried to make a straight pull 9mm and get it wrong. Now, I've been actually meaning to post a photo on the English Shooting page, but you know, life does get in the way. We've actually been very kindly sent down a Smizer 9mm straight pull from Edgar Brothers. So we did that video out on at the British Shooting Show, which is out there if you want to learn more about it. And Smizer were quite happy with what we did, so I think they asked Edgar Brothers to send us down the rifle. So we will be doing a full review, and hopefully get out to the range at some point and film that. You know, what a weird world we're living in. I'll actually go and do a gun review. And they very kindly sent down a load of 9mm as well. That I was not expecting. They sent down 200 rounds of 9mm Hornady. Now, unless we're just going to get an invoice for anything that we use, and then it's a bit like, well, you crafty bastards. But I think they've sent down the gun and 200 rounds and gone, fill your boots. So yeah, I'll be trying to get out with that very, very soon. I have heard on that note, and what I was getting to is that even with the Smizer, a lot of anticipation, and I've heard a lot of good things about it. But I have also heard some bad things. Like, people, I don't know, there's just something about the 9mm in a straight pull that it's like kryptonite to gun manufacturers. So it'd be interesting to see. You know, it's never a true test, because I think they've sent me down the demo gun. You know, of course, they're not going to knowingly send down a non-functional demo gun unless it's a 940. But anyway, you know, it's yeah, are the ones out of the box going to be representative? We don't know. We will see. But it'll be very interesting to see if the Raven 9mm run as flawlessly as I think a lot of people are hoping or expect them to. Anyway, only second to this channel is watching Malene on I'm a Celebrity in a wet t-shirt. Thank you, I guess. Well, some super positive news. Well, I'll get on to the really super positive news. But of course, this weekend was the Northern Shooting Show. I always say Northern Shooting Show, it's one of the highlights of the year. It's, you know, a proper shooting show in the sense that there's shooting there. They have the clay line where you can go and shoot various shotguns. There's air rifle shooting. They have axe throwing, and there's usually some 2-2 shooting in the gallery trailer. This year there was a little bit more 2-2 shooting, which I will get to in a second. And what I will get to in a second is the reason why I think I spent the entirety of 20 minutes walking around the Northern Shooting Show. I was so optimistic that this year, with Magload not having a stand and the UK PSA having a stand and helping that stand instead, I'd have more time to go and enjoy the show, maybe make a video or two, and really just take it in as a normal sort of visitor. And oh, how wrong I was. It was easily the most work and most effort that I've ever expended at a show, and I think it was the same for everybody else on the stand. But came away with like the biggest smile. the absolute biggest smile that I've ever done, ever got from a shooting show. So in terms of the Northern Shooting Show review, I can't really give it a full review. From what I did see, though, there was a lot of trepidation because the game fair took it over. The Northern Shooting Show used to be owned by Paul and Richard, and they were incredible at getting smaller brands in there, getting charities and smaller organizations and associations representation, and that's what really made it like a proper show. You got like everyone was welcome there, no matter how big or how small. They made it possible for you to be there, and the Northern Shooting Show was the first show that Magload ever did, and it was only because of their encouragement of smaller brands, and I say smaller. This was literally at the time where it was just myself and Con. I think I was like sort of part-time helping. It was Connor's, and I think even Connor's had like he had a 9 to 5 as well. So it was sort of like a part-time thing for Connor's and a sort of part-time thing for me. I was focusing on sort of other things. So Magload was a lot smaller at that point, and we didn't even think about going to a show, but Paul was like, I will get you a space if you want to come. Anyway, and I think there was some trepidation that with it being taken over by the game fair, it was going to turn into a game fair. It was going to be more handbags and gun dogs and posh wellies than actually a shooting show. And what I can say is that there was probably more shooting at the Northern Shooting Show than there has ever been. There's more activities, and it did feel more like a game fair in the sense that there was a lot more going on outside. There was a lot more activity, a lot more, I think, a hell of a lot more food stands, which is never a bad thing. And I don't mean, selling, posh chutneys, like actual, like proper nice, like food to eat, for lunch and your breakfast and your dinner while you're at the show. So, I think in one of the main halls there was a noticeable decline in numbers. There was more empty space, but we saw this at the British Shooting Show. The Target Shooting Show does not look like it's going ahead. There's no news about that. So the shows are struggling in that sense. But I think what the Northern Shooting Show has done is maybe focusing less on the actual trade stands. They're focusing more on the day out. And that's my experience with game fairs previously. Is yes, there's a lot of posh wellies and tweed on sale, but there's also a lot more to do. So I felt very, if you, the biggest problem we have with shooting is getting people to try it. The accessibility of it. And what I think the Northern Shooting Show are going to do is make a go-to place once a year where if you want to come and try any area of shooting, you will be able to do it at the Northern Shooting Show. And to me, that's far more important than, being able to go and buy something in the flesh, because everybody has uh, everyone has a website now, right? And I think that's what we're having is, that's part of the decision that we made as Magload not to be there at the show. It's a lot of time. It's a lot of effort in the run up. We usually have to spend 2 or 3 weeks prior building up stock to make sure that we've got it on the day. We then have to tear down half the unit and cram it into the back of the van and drive up the night before and set it all up and get everything looking neat and sparkly with all the stock out there. And it's a hard slog, and usually for not a massive return. And we look at it that we are essentially an e-commerce. We have a shop. You can come down to the shop anytime you like. We do like to be at the shows because it's great engagement, and we like meeting the customers and talking face with people. But in terms of a pure business decision, it will be far more effective to spend. We would get a far bigger return spending the cost of doing a show on Google advertisement or Facebook advertisement, or placements in magazines or influencer marketing or stuff like that, it would be far more beneficial for us. So, that's why we decided not to do it. And I think a lot of people are sort of going that route. So the shows have to change. We're seeing the British Shooting Show become more of a trade show. We're seeing it it's got more of a feel of IWA about it rather than how it used to be at Stoneleigh. And I think the game fair have taken over the Northern Shooting Show again. We're seeing two different strategies, and I think that's good. It's good for the British Shooting Show to be different to the Northern Shooting Show, and vice versa. They offer two different things. You've got one show that's very trade oriented. A lot of business can be done there, whereas you've got something that's actually more for the people. It's more for the family. It's more of a day out. And I think both work in their own way. So yeah, that's my review of the show. But the massive positive was, so in not running a stand with Magload, it was decided that the UK PSA would do something that they've not done before at one of these shows, and actually do a try shoot. And there's various. I'll bring up the UK PSA page, and I won't shy away from saying it was. I think it was myself that really spearheaded this idea, because I've said this for years. Practical shooting is a bit of a niche, within shooting sport. Shooting sports is a niche, and practical shooting is like a niche of a niche. And how do you get people trying a sport? You need them to be pulling triggers. You need them to be actually trying it, because not only is that the best education, it's the best way to get somebody hooked. So I was like, right, there's an opportunity here. Let's go and do something that's never been done before. And that resulted in an absolutely fantastic weekend for all involved. Very, very Connors heavy in the photos, but there were two other instructors that were running it. Without them, this just wouldn't be possible. And Paul and Mick were also involved. We were more front of house, because we're not instructors. And it was paramount that obviously it was the most qualified people running them through. And it really did. It just like made my year, just seeing the variety of people that had never even pulled the trigger of a gun before. Women, men, children, all different ages, all different backgrounds, seeing people take part in this and wanting to give it a go and being able to give it a go. And it wasn't just stand here and shoot this plate rack. It was, this was a representative stages with apertures. They're loading with the shotgun. You can see they've got the belt on there. So there's a little aperture here for one target. You could take the plate rack from either of these central apertures. Yes, a plate rack technically isn't IPSC legal, but you've got to give us a little bit of a leeway and come through to the final aperture for one final target. And no, there's a couple of things, because unfortunately there are people out there that just love to stir up problems and see past all the positivity. So first of all, that is not a live handgun. That is not an LBP. That is an Action Air. The kid was quite small. Don't think, well, he wouldn't been able to manage the shotgun, and he didn't like the idea of a mini rifle. So the Action Air. And I've seen a few silly, misguided, just comments about this being a Section 1 shotgun and not being able to share Section 1s. And oh my God, the UK PSA are giving away and sharing Section 1 shotguns left, right, and center. No, as I have talked about on this channel many, many times before, for my own training with Section 2, I have always put a fake tube on there. Well, it's a real tube, but it's still a restricted Section 2 gun, right? If you're training and you're anticipating using a Section 1 with a long tube, then you want the feel of the gun to be exactly the same. Getting in and out of apertures, you want it to be exactly the same. You don't want to get into bad habits with a gun that doesn't have a tube and then, you know, get a gun with a tube and then have issues. So this is a Section 2 shotgun. We were showing practical. We were demonstrating practical. And this is the setup of the gun that you're going to be using in competition. This is what, if they go and look at videos, they are going to see people using. So we want to give them the best representation of what they're doing and the best feel. And, you know, a big lump of carbon fiber stuck out the end looks cool as well. It makes the guns look a little racier, a little sexier. And that's how you get people to come in and try it. Oh, wait, that's a Benelli M2 field. I have never seen a Benelli M2 field look like that before. So well within the laws. Thank you very much. But the real crux of it, and, you know, why has this gone full screen? Oh dear. Can I get back? There we go. It just, everything went full screen for me. You know, I run this channel and I got into shooting sports because I just love it. But pretty much everything else I do is about sharing it and trying to get people into it. So it was almost like I just sort of reached, not the pinnacle, but I've reached a sort of new height of actually being able to hands-on get people into the sport. And the total figures, we got 155 unique people through the stage, and I think 38 of them, or something, like it was like 30 or 40 odd, came back for a second go. And we were speaking to a lot of people that literally came onto the stand, was like, "What's this?" "Well, this practical shooting." Given an explanation. "Do you want to give it a go?" "Yes." And when they come back off the stage, they're grabbing every leaflet in front of them going, "I'm going to check this out. I didn't know this sort of thing existed." You know, so very, very, you know, the guys that were involved in this, absolutely super. The instructors couldn't have done a better job. Connors could have been a little more friendly, as he's always friendly. But yeah, everyone just absolutely worked their nuts off, and it has to be something that we do regularly. Because this is how you get people into shooting, and this is how you get people into certain certain parts of shooting, is giving it a go. And people just were walking past and they would stop and look and go, did that guy just like move with the gun and flip it over and chuck some cartridges in it? We're like, come on in, like come and have a look, come and have a talk. So absolutely buzzing off the back of that. And, you know, I think, you know, both Connors and I, we want to go back. We want to do more stands, and more shows. We were like, but if this is the sacrifice, if we're not going there as Magload, but we're going there and running something like this and being a part of something like this, it's like, it's so beneficial for the sport, and it was just incredibly rewarding. So I don't know, maybe there might be people watching tonight that had a go. Let us know what you think. What improvements? There's a lot of improvements that could be made. Again, I'd never done anything like this. I don't think anybody else a part of it had done anything like this, and it was going to be a huge learning curve. But we now think we've got a bit of a formula, a bit of a recipe. So we're going to try and get out there, and not just at the Northern Shooting Show. We're going to look at, you know, attending game fairs. We're going to look at attending other non-shooting or countryside events to not just share practical to the rest of the shooting industry and community, but to share it to the rest of the country, to the rest of the public. Anyway, there's my yeah, we were all buzzing. I'm sort of still buzzing, like watching a lot of the smiles, and like that person had never shot a gun before, and we helped them do that. For me, there's nothing more rewarding. There's a fly going around here. Nearly went out my nose. Dylan, I feel that there seemed to be fewer stalls in the main hall this year. For some reason, I could be wrong, but it was still a great day out. Loved the clay lines. Yeah, I completely agree. My feeling was there were less stands there this time. Brian, the British Shooting Show was a huge letdown. I think that is where it's heading. Not it's just going to be a continuous big letdown, but the British Shooting Show is going to, I think, become less appealing for the average customer, the average visitor. I think they are very much gearing it more towards the trade and the industry. So unless you're in the trade, and unless you're a gun shop, unless you're a supplier to the gun industry, you're an organization, you're a wholesaler or a manufacturer, I think the British Shooting Show, unfortunately, is going to become less and less appealing or interesting to somebody that wants to go there and get a good deal. The real crux of it is the amount that the British Shooting Show and the Northern Shooting Show as well is certainly not as cheap as it used to. Well, it was never cheap, but it's certainly more expensive than it used to be. And that when you're spending thousands of pounds for a stand, with all the other costs attributed, it's very hard to do show discounts, show specials, because there's money to recruit. You've got huge costs to be there just to have your stand. So you don't want to start giving away margin, especially when you've got a website, when you're an established business where people can, buy a gun and have it shipped to their local RFD from your website. So, well, you can't technically buy a gun from the website, but you all know the processes. So yeah, I think the Northern Shooting Show is probably going to become less themed towards the regular shooter, but more towards maybe the shooting family or just the average day out, or say an average a good day out, which is fantastic. Which maybe does still leave a market open for a conventional shooting show, and I think that's more what the Target Shooting Show was trying to do, but hasn't been able to sustain because of the great flu. And what you're saying, have you heard anything further about the Target Shooting Show this year? Nothing at all, and we are fast running out of time. I don't think there's any way that they would announce a shooting show and be able to put it on with sort of with it being meaningful. Aaron T, are LBPs good for improving centerfire pistol work? I don't like the coat hanger, but I'm willing to accept LBPs as a training tool. 100%. Like, inarguable, not having it. Anybody that disagrees with me, you're wrong. LBPs are fantastic training tools for centerfire shooting. Action Air as well is a fantastic training tool. It's still the same principles. Yes, you don't get to really work on your recoil control, but drawing is you're using. So with an LBP, say with the PPQ, right? Whether it's 2.2 or 9mm, I'm using the same holster. The grip is exactly the same. My draw is exactly the same. My sight acquisition is exactly the same. Target acquisition is exactly the same. The controls on the gun are exactly the same. The drills that I would be doing, the manipulation of the gun that I would be doing, exactly the same. The muscle memory and the instinctive areas of shooting, like acquiring your sights, acquiring the targets, is all exactly the same. The magazines on a PPQ are slightly different, but then when you look at like the KMR, which is basically a 2.2 version of a CZ Shadow 2, the magazines are much more suitable, so much more comparable. So 100%, yeah. If you regularly shoot a CZ Shadow 2 out abroad, or any sort of CZ Shadow abroad, and you want a training aid, look at the KMR. If you're shooting a PPQ, look at the LBP PPQ. It will 100% help you. Peter Rose, my missus loves the British Shooting Show just because she gets lashed on the gin samples, gin stall samples. I just, I mean, everyone does their shows differently, right? You know, but IWA does win that the award for the best perks, giving away, out beer. Still, I still need to bring one home and put it on the shelf. They're still in the office, but I will get that. But anyway, on that note, I am going to leave it there, guys. Before you all head off, if you haven't already, hit that like button, and to help our way to 40,000 subscribers and beyond, make sure you are subscribed. We will, are we free next week? Let me check my calendar. I thought we were going to do it last week, but we're still packing up. Next week is completely free. So we will be here, same time, same place, as always. Just one quick one. Rick, I can see a new line of Magload products coming out soon. Magload Wellies, Magload Tweed, and Magload Gin. That will upset the upper class. Don't give me bad ideas. Very good ideas, but bad for all the right reasons. But yeah, there we go, guys. I will leave you with a little clip of the new Kel-Tec CP33 that's coming to market, and then I will be off. So take care. Thanks for joining. Hit that like button. Make sure you're subscribed, and of course, as always, guys, hope to see you soon.